The client names were sitting in a public folder under my account at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I discovered this digital nightmare while reviewing case management logs for our quarterly compliance audit. Benedict Kingsley, 42, public policy partner at one of Washington, D.C.'s most prestigious firms. 20 years of building an impeccable reputation, and now confidential client information was exposed, like classified documents left on a park bench. The folder contained everything: corporate merger details for Fortune 500 companies, congressional testimony preparations, lobbying registration forms with sensitive political connections, all accessible to anyone with basic network permissions. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the access logs. The folder had been created 6 months ago, downloaded 47 times by external IP addresses, some from overseas locations I couldn't identify. The timestamp showed creation at 2:15 a.m. on March 15th. I remembered that date clearly. I was in Chicago depositing my daughter at Northwestern for her sophomore year. My laptop never left the hotel room. Someone had used my credentials to create this security breach, someone with intimate knowledge of my case files and client roster, someone who understood our firm's document management system well enough to navigate its deepest directories. I pulled up the user activity reports. My account showed consistent late-night access patterns during periods when I was traveling or in court. Sophisticated timing. Calculated precision. The billing records revealed another disturbing pattern: mysterious charges for premium database access and document storage services I never authorized. Small amounts spread across months, designed to avoid detection during routine reviews. My secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message from an unknown sender: "Check your bar complaint status tonight." The DC Bar website showed 3 pending ethics violations filed against me in the past week. Allegations of client confidentiality breaches, improper document handling, failure to maintain adequate security protocols. Each complaint referenced specific cases from the exposed folder. Someone wasn't just stealing information. They were systematically destroying my career while covering their tracks. I closed my laptop and stared at the city lights beyond my office windows. 20 floors below, Washington slept peacefully, while my professional life crumbled in real time. The security breach was too sophisticated for an outsider, too precise for a random attack. This was personal. This was planned. Someone inside our firm had declared war on me, and they were winning. The investigation began at dawn. I arrived at the office before security unlocked the main entrance, using my partner-level access to bypass the lobby. The building felt different in the pre-morning darkness. Hollow, threatening. I needed to understand how someone had penetrated my digital fortress. Our firm's case management system required multi-factor authentication, biometric scanning, and encrypted access tokens. Breaking in from the outside would take sophisticated hacking skills and significant resources. The more likely scenario chilled me. Inside access. I pulled personnel records for everyone with administrative privileges to my case files. The list was shorter than expected. 3 senior associates, 2 paralegals, 1 IT administrator, and my former summer associate, Dominic Ashworth. Dominic had worked under my supervision 2 years ago during his final semester at Georgetown Law. Brilliant legal mind, exceptional research skills, photographic memory for case details and client information. I had mentored him personally, recommended him for the DC Bar, written glowing references for his job applications. When he struggled to find permanent placement after graduation, I had advocated for extending his contract through our fellowship program. The memories stung now. I gave them access to my CLE compliance records and bar dues. Complete trust. Complete vulnerability. I pulled Dominic's employment file from HR. His contract had ended 8 months ago when he accepted a position with a boutique litigation firm in Arlington. Standard transition. Professional references. No red flags, but the timeline troubled me. His departure coincided with the beginning of the suspicious access patterns in my account logs. The correlation felt too precise for coincidence. I cross-referenced his final weeks at our firm with the security breach timeline. During his last month, Dominic had requested extended access to complete research on 3 major cases. All 3 cases were now compromised in the public folder. The homage was circumstantial but compelling. Motive remained unclear. I called our IT security director, Elizabeth Hartwell, at 6:30 a.m. She answered on the second ring, already awake and reviewing overnight system alerts. "Benedict, I was about to call you. We found something disturbing in the audit logs." "The public folder?" "Worse. Someone cloned your authentication credentials. They've been accessing your files remotely for months using a sophisticated spoofing protocol. The attacks originated from multiple locations but followed a consistent pattern. Can you trace the source?" "We're working on it. But whoever did this understands our security architecture intimately. They knew exactly which directories to target and how to avoid triggering automatic alerts." Elizabeth agreed to meet me in the secure conference room at 8 a.m. I spent the intervening time reviewing Dominic's work product from his final months. His research memos were flawless. His case summaries were comprehensive. His client interaction reports showed nothing unusual. But buried in his computer usage logs, I found the smoking gun. During his last week at the firm, Dominic had accessed my personal credential vault using an emergency override protocol. The system showed he had requested temporary elevated privileges to complete urgent research for a client deadline. I remembered approving that request. The client was facing a critical filing deadline, and Dominic needed access to privileged documents in my secure directory. I had authorized the override without hesitation. That trust had been weaponized against me. Elizabeth arrived with a thick folder of technical analysis and a grim expression. She spread printouts across the conference table like in a murder trial. The credential theft was sophisticated. Your former associate used his temporary access to install a keylogger on your workstation. Every password, every authentication token, every security code you entered was captured and transmitted to an external server. For how long? 6 months minimum, possibly longer. The malware was designed to self-destruct after his employment ended, but it left behind a backdoor that allowed continued access to your account. The scope of the betrayal was staggering. Dominic hadn't just stolen client information, he had systematically compromised my entire digital identity within the firm's network. "There's more," Elizabeth continued. "We found of document modification. Someone altered timestamps on critical case files to make it appear you had accessed them during periods when you were out of the office. They were building a false narrative of negligent security practices." The bar complaint suddenly made sense. Dominic hadn't just exposed my client's confidential information. He had manufactured to support ethics violations that would destroy my career and deflect suspicion from his own crimes. "Can you prove he did this?" "The digital forensics are conclusive. But we need to move quickly. If he realizes we've discovered the breach, he might destroy additional or escalate his attacks." I stared at the technical reports spread across the table. 2 years ago I had seen potential in a struggling law student and offered him opportunity. I had shared my knowledge, my connections, my trust. He had repaid that generosity by systematically destroying everything I had built. The betrayal cut deeper than professional sabotage. This was personal warfare disguised as cybercrime. Elizabeth was already coordinating with our external security consultants and preparing a comprehensive forensic report. The totally was overwhelming. The timeline was clear. The perpetrator was identified. But questions remained. Why had Dominic targeted me specifically? What was his ultimate objective? And how many other victims were there? My secure phone buzzed with another encrypted message. "The bar hearing is scheduled for next week. Hope you're prepared." The confrontation came at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I had scheduled the meeting in Conference Room C, away from the main partner corridor. Elizabeth Kensington sat beside me with 3 laptops displaying the forensic. Dominic arrived precisely on time, carrying his usual leather portfolio. "Thank you for coming," I said. "We need to discuss some irregularities in our case management system." His expression remained neutral. "Of course. How can I help?" Elizabeth opened the first laptop. "We've identified unauthorized access to Benedict's client files. The breach originated from credentials linked to your employee account." Dominic leaned, studying the screen. "That's impossible. I haven't had access to the firm's systems since my employment ended 8 months ago." "The malware installation occurred during your final week," Elizabeth continued. "It created a persistent backdoor that allowed remote access to Benedict's account. We have timestamps, IP addresses, and digital signatures." For the first time, Dominic's composure cracked. His eyes darted between the screens, calculating. "This is clearly a mistake. Someone must have compromised my credentials." I placed a printed report on the table. "The Financial Crimes Strategy Office has been investigating this case for 3 weeks. Cross-agency finance probe analyst Kelsey Yoon confirmed the malware's origin point." "Your personal laptop." The silence stretched for 30 seconds. Dominic's hands remained perfectly still on the conference table. "Additionally," I continued, "we've documented the public folder exposure. Client names, case details, privileged communications. All accessible to anyone with basic network access." "The bar complaints weren't coincidental," Elizabeth added. "Someone modified document timestamps to create false of security negligence. The digital forensics proved those alterations came from the same compromised account." Dominic finally spoke. "You're making serious accusations without understanding the full context." "Then explain the context." He stood and walked to the window overlooking K Street. "The firm's partnership track is rigged. You know it, I know it. Certain people get opportunities while others get exploitation. So you decided to destroy my practice?" "I decided to level the playing field. Your clients deserve to know how their confidential information was really being handled. The public folder was a service to transparency." The admission hung in the air like smoke. Elizabeth was already recording the conversation with his consent from our earlier email exchange. "You exposed attorney-client privilege to prove a point about partnership politics? I exposed systemic problems that the partnership refuses to acknowledge. Your security practices were genuinely negligent. I just helped document that fact." "By installing malware and manufacturing?" Dominic turned back to face us. "The wasn't manufactured, it was enhanced for clarity." Elizabeth closed the laptops. "We're filing a formal complaint with the D.C. bar tomorrow morning. The criminal referral goes to the U.S. Attorney's Office by Friday. You're also facing civil liability," I added. 3 clients have already filed malpractice suits. They'll be amended to include intentional interference and privacy violations." Dominic sat back down. "This won't the way you think it will." "How do you think it will?" "The partnership will sacrifice you to protect the firm's reputation. They'll claim inadequate supervision and throw you under the bus. I've seen it happen before." He wasn't entirely wrong. Law firms protected themselves first, partners second, associates never. "That's why we're handling this differently," Elizabeth said. "The forensic is already with external counsel. The bar complaint includes detailed technical documentation, and the criminal referral bypasses the firm's internal review process entirely. You can't prove intent to harm. We can prove unauthorized access, data theft, privacy violations, and obstruction of justice. Intent becomes irrelevant when is this comprehensive." Dominic gathered his portfolio. "I'll be retaining counsel." "Smart choice," I said. "You'll need it." After he left, Elizabeth and I reviewed the next phase. The bar hearing was scheduled for the following Thursday. The criminal investigation would take months, but the TWAMC was solid. The civil litigation would proceed in parallel. "How many other victims?" I asked. "We're still investigating, but the malware targeted multiple accounts. You weren't the only one." The scope kept expanding. What started as personal revenge had become systematic sabotage, affecting dozens of attorneys and hundreds of clients. My secure phone buzzed with a message from the managing partner. Emergency! Partnership meeting tomorrow at 7 a.m. Your presence required. The firm's damage control was beginning. They would try to contain the scandal, minimize liability, and preserve their reputation. Standard protocol for crisis management. But this time they were dealing with documented, federal investigators and a paper trail that led directly to their inadequate security protocols. The partnership meeting would be interesting. Elizabeth packed the forensic equipment. The Financial Crimes Strategy Office wants to interview you next week. Kelsey Yoon will coordinate the schedule. What's their assessment? This qualifies as organized cybercrime with interstate implications. The penalties are significant. I looked out at the city lights reflecting off the Potomac. 2 years ago, I had trusted a struggling law student with access to my practice. That trust had nearly destroyed everything I had built. But the flebser was clear. The investigation was thorough. And justice was finally within reach. The real battle was just beginning. 6 months later, I stood in my new corner office overlooking K Street. The nameplate read, Benedict Kingsley, Senior Counsel, Cybersecurity and Data Protection. The irony wasn't lost on me. The partnership had dissolved quietly. 3 senior partners faced bar sanctions. The firm's malpractice insurance covered most client settlements, but the reputation damage was irreversible. They closed the Washington office in February. Dominic Ashworth received 18 months in federal prison and permanent disbarment. The Financial Crime Strategy Office had traced his activities to 17 different law firms across 4 states. The total damage exceeded $2.3 million in compromised client data and legal fees. Elizabeth Hartwell joined the FBI's cybercrime division. Her forensic work on my case became a training model for similar investigations. We still exchange case notes occasionally. My new practice specialized in helping law firms prevent exactly what happened to me. The demand was overwhelming. Every major firm in the district wanted security audits after the scandal broke. The work was methodical. I audit internal messaging systems for sabotage loopholes, review access protocols, test encryption standards, train associates on data protection. The technical aspects came naturally now. My client base included 3 former competitors and 2 federal agencies. The retainer agreements were substantial. The work was satisfying in ways I hadn't expected. Last week, a young attorney from Baltimore called about suspicious billing discrepancies. The symptoms sounded familiar. Unauthorized access logs, missing client files, altered timestamps in the case management system. I scheduled the consultation for Thursday morning. The investigation tools were already packed. The forensic software was updated. The secure communication protocols were established. I knew exactly what to look for. The predators were still out there. But now I was hunting them. My secure phone displayed 17 missed calls from potential clients. Each one represented another attorney who had trusted the wrong person. Another practice under attack. Another opportunity for justice. The work never stopped. The threats kept evolving. But the methods for catching them were getting better. I opened the first case file of the day. A family law practice in Arlington. Missing trust account records. Suspicious wire transfers. A recently terminated paralegal with administrative access. The pattern was always the same. Trust. Access. Betrayal. But the ending was different now. The victims had resources. The investigators had tools. The criminals faced real consequences. I reviewed the preliminary package. The digital fingerprints were clear. The timeline was documented. The financial trail was comprehensive. This case would take 3 weeks to resolve, maybe 4 if the defendant tried to fight the charges. The outcome was already determined. The only question was how much additional damage they would cause before accepting defeat. I reached for my secure laptop and began typing the initial assessment report. The cursor blinked steadily against the white screen. Outside, the afternoon traffic moved slowly down K Street. The city continued its daily rhythm of power and ambition. The same forces that had nearly destroyed my career were still operating. But the balance had shifted. The hunters had become the hunted. It was finally over, and silence felt earned.